Okay, so today I'm going to talk about 5 mistakes that often prevent us making lasting positive behavioural change. And when I say 5, it could have been 20. I'm just going to do 5 on this session because I don't want it to be too long. But also I'll keep coming back to these themes that are so essential, I think, at the moment with everything that's happening in our lives in these turbulent times. Change, in many ways, is being forced upon us. Right, and then we've got 2 options. We can sort of take charge of that change and be flexible and adapt with it and grow with that change, or we can just bounce off it at loggerheads, constantly rebutting this change and not understanding how our brain works to make change. And it can be really frustrating, especially in the moment, right? We're all in this unique situation where change is just being like pushed upon us and we've got to adapt. But that's the beauty of the human species, right? That's our key skill, is the ability to adapt and change to our circumstances, which are always in flux in many ways. And I said this before on one of my earlier sessions about Nicholas Taleb, you know, the black swan theory of these events happening in our life that are so like left field that in theory they should never happen, but they keep happening at more and more regular intervals. Just think back, in only the last few years, we've had 9/11, Brexit, we've had the crash, the housing crash, and now we've had coronavirus. It's unbelievable when you think about these like world-shifting events that, even though on their own they feel so exceptional, keep repeating themselves. And there'll be another one down the line. This is the point. That's why now is the best time to really understand how your brain works, understand how change works, so you can adapt quicker and more effectively when these big things happen. But bigger than that, you can then start to take charge of change in every which way. So you can start to make foundational and fundamental changes in your life that are really going to help, whether that's to transform your career, your relationship with food, the way that you move your body. All of these things will make a huge difference over time. So now is the perfect time to really understand how all of this works. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to look at 5 of the top mistakes that most people make when they're trying to make behavioural change. Right, it's the things that trip us up. Again, there's about 20 of these, but we just run through 5. Okay, let's do it. Let me just check this is working. I think it is. Perfect. Right, number 1. Yes, look at that for high tech. It's just a gigantic Post-it note. It's huge, isn't it? Have you ever seen a Post-it note that big? I'm not sure I have. I've actually got even bigger ones that I will get out at some point. But anyway, I understand, therefore I do. Okay, this is the big mistake. This is where we assume, and I talk a lot about this in my book, Let's Do This, that we are these perfectly rational, judgment-making machines, when we're not at all. Now, we're perfectly imperfect human beings. So what tends to happen is we cognitively, we understand why we should do something, and then based on that understanding, assume that we will do the things that we need to do based on that learning. For example, we will understand that we should move our bodies every day. Most people don't do it. We all understand perfectly that we should eat a nutritious diet. Most people don't do it. Like all of these things that we cognitively, we get it, right? We totally understand it. We don't need it to be explained to us as to why we should do it. And then there's that link between the understanding and an assumption that we will do it, and then we don't. And that leads to incredible frustration time and time again. It's like, hold on a minute, why is that? If I understand this thing, why am I not taking action? I've made this lovely rational decision that that advice is good advice, therefore I'm going to execute on that advice, and then days, minutes, seconds later, we do the very opposite or don't do the things that we've just cognitively completely understood and identified with, yet we don't follow through with action. That just trips people up constantly. So the number 1 thing is to get it into your mind that we are perfectly imperfect humans, right? It doesn't work like that. We don't just make rational decisions and then follow them through. There's a whole load of structure behind that and a whole load of effort that goes in behind that to get us in the position where we can continually show up and do the things that we need to do. And we'll talk about some of those as we go along. But very much everything that I do in many ways is based around that whole principle of trying to give people a bit of structure, trying to give people a bit of understanding so that they can figure out how to make change. Because when you think about it, everything's change. Like everything that we want to do involves change. Whether we want to change the way that our body looks, or whether we want to change our mindset, we want to change our temperament, we want to change our financial situation, all of these things involve change. That is why it's so important to figure this stuff out. That's why I've been so intrigued by how we make change, lasting change in our lives. Because ultimately, that is everything. If you can master this one piece of the sort of motivational puzzle, you've nailed it. If you can consistently show up and change and adapt, you can pretty much achieve anything you want to achieve. Cool. All right, so that's number one. Number two, sticking with the green. I have willpower. And again, you've heard me talk about this a lot. Willpower is one of those things, it's like a metaphorical muscle. It runs out the more you use it. In the current environment, it's probably getting zapped before about 9 a.m. is the truth. Like in this sort of chaotic environment that we're in, many of you might have the kids at home, your partner's at home, everyone's trying to do everything, they're trying to work, they're trying to homeschool, they're trying to do everything within this confined space. Maybe they're fighting over the Wi-Fi or the computer or whatever it is. Now your willpower tanks are going to get slammed on the back of that because you're going to be resisting that temptation to like blow up and shout at everyone or whatever it is. Therefore, you might be finding already that your best laid intentions are starting to slip through your fingers. By the time it comes to 6 o'clock, you're exhausted. And the idea of going for that lovely run at 6 o'clock around the block, social distancing, of course, suddenly disappears because those willpower tanks have been slammed. Therefore, you cannot make lasting change on willpower because it's totally inconsistent. You never know when it's going to show up. But I will say with one caveat, the best place to put your willpower challenges is in the morning because your willpower tanks are full in the morning. If you can imagine, it's like a tank that gets like slowly drained over the course of the day. Therefore, when you wake up, you've got your highest chance of using willpower to do things that you need to do. But again, you've heard me talk about this before. Everything I'm trying to do is get these ideas and these changes into a place that don't require willpower because they're fundamentally part of who you are, right? And I think that's a key message behind all of this, but you do need willpower at the start. So on that note, if you've got willpower challenges right now, such as moving your body, such as writing 500 words, such as eating a nutritious diet, whatever it is for you, if you feel like you're using willpower, now's the time, I think, to get up a bit earlier. I was talking about this just the other day, and I was talking about this, I think, into the One Beer group. But there's a real opportunity now, I think, because we don't have the distractions of an evening to maybe go to bed a bit earlier, to get up a bit earlier, to build in some you time before the kids are awake or the world starts or your job starts, maybe that hour, that 30 minutes, whatever it is, that will make a huge difference to your day. Because in that moment, right, when you've got those willpower tanks that are full, you can still get that motivation to exercise, to write your 500 words or whatever your goal challenges are. So think long and hard about using that morning slot when you've got extra willpower. But coming back to the main point, you cannot make lasting change on willpower alone. That's one of the top mistakes that people make. Cool. That's number 2 done. Number 3. But today is special. But today is special, right? And I know we've got less distraction right at the moment, and there's less of those distractive days in the calendar that are those special days, but obviously birthdays are still going to come and go, but maybe there's less of those sort of social events that become specialer days. But that being said, even within this environment, there's special days all over the place. There's those, it's the 3rd day of lockdown, special day. It's the 4th day of lockdown, special day. Let's do this because it's the first time. They're all there, right? They litter our worlds, and what they do, they trip up that momentum that you may be building towards change. Every time that you sort of have a day off, essentially, a strategic day off because it's a special day, it just undermines that momentum that you're trying to build towards lasting change. In theory, Just don't have a day off. Become someone that moves their body every day. Become someone that writes their 500 words if you're trying to write a book. Like, embrace these ideas, because then you don't require willpower, as I mentioned. That being said, the big caveat around all of this is that you still won't do those things every day, is the truth, right? And you've got to own that part of the change process. Even if you go all in and become someone that's going to move their body every day, there will be days you don't do it, because life will get in the way. So for me, it's a little bit like, if you've ever read the book 1984 by George Orwell, it's a brilliant book. If you read that book, there's a part of it where he talks about doublethink. And doublethink is holding two contrary ideas in your mind at the same time. For example, a brilliant way to describe this is golfers, elite golfers. Let's say, if you've ever trained with like a golf coach or a putting coach, for example, in golf, they'll tell you you have to 100% believe you're going to make the putt. 100% believe it, you're going to make that putt. But at the same time, you have to leave the putt just short enough past the hole, if you do miss, that you can get it in two. So that's doublethink. It's that contrary argument in your head. You have to 100% believe you're going to make the putt, but at the same time, you have to keep this other thought inside your head that says, well, if I do miss it, I have to leave it short enough past the hole so I can make the next putt. And I think it's a little bit like that in many ways in life, in what we're trying to achieve with this. We have to go all in with these changes. So you're going to become someone that moves their body every day. You're going to become someone that controls their temperament or their mindset, knowing the contrary argument that you have to keep at the same time is that at times those things won't happen. But that shouldn't deter you from believing 100% that you are someone that's going to show up every day and exercise, if you get me, rather than having these little tactical days off. It's about totally going all in, but giving yourself just a little bit of space to know that for whatever reason, there will be those times that you don't write your journal, or there will be those times that you don't eat perfectly, or you do lose your temper, or you don't meditate, or whatever it is for you that you're trying to achieve. Cool. So that's number 3. Number 4. Number 4, at least I'm better than. Right, and I caught my daughter doing this last night. At least I'm better than. This is about your comparison bar that we all sort of have. And there's a temptation in times such as this to compare down, to go, well, at least I'm not as bad as X, Y, and Z. At least I'm not doing what they're doing, right? Don't do that. Don't compare down. Always compare up. Like, look to your heroes. Look to the people that inspire you. What are they doing in these turbulent times to power up their mindset, to like stand firm, to still keep momentum in their life? What are they doing? Compare upwards, don't compare down. It's easy to compare down. There's always someone doing something that they shouldn't be doing that can sort of make you feel a little bit better about not doing your bit. Whereas if you compare up, you have to aspire to be those people, right? And that drags you up towards better performance in life and towards behavioural change as well, because if you see people doing the things that you want to do even now in amongst all this turbulence, like, aspire to be those people. Raise your bar up rather than lower it down. Cool, right, the last one. The pink post-it. Look at the pink post-it. Not mucking around today. I shouldn't need structure. Right, and this is one of those beliefs that trips so many people up. There's an assumption that, again, based on number 1, that we understand it, therefore that we will do it. There's a follow-on assumption from that that says, why should I need structure? I've made this lovely rational decision in my head. I don't need to do loads of planning. I'll just turn up on the day and behave perfectly. And all those changes that I promised myself I was going to make are going to magically fall in line because I'm totally in control of my life as a perfectly rational human being. Doesn't work. Doesn't work for anyone. No one is making lasting change by just turning up and hoping for the best. No one is achieving what they want to achieve by winging it, making it up as they go along. They're just not. Like, peel back the layers of anyone that's achieving or reaching or making changes that you'd like to change. And there's always a structure behind it, because everyone's worked it out over time that achieves big things and makes lots of changes, that without structure, you've got no chance. We are perfectly imperfect human beings. We need structure. Otherwise, we just won't do the things that we need to do to achieve the things that we need to achieve. So never underestimate the power of structure. In fact, the number one thing that you can do to reach your goals and your dreams or make change in these turbulent times, build in structure into your life. If you're not doing it already, start now. Start now by journaling. So if there's one thing that you take away from this little session today, it's to get out a pen and a paper and start mapping out your day. Like, map it out. Just experiment with this stuff. We can get deeper into the weeds of journaling and how we optimize like your daily routines and whatnot as we go along. But for now, just play around with it. Just look at your day and map it out. And here's the thing to all of this structure. It gives you this sense of control. Caveat, doesn't mean that what you write down as your plan is going to happen perfectly. 99 times out of 100, it doesn't always map out perfectly, because life gets in the way and the curveballs that happen along the way. But there is this sense of control, right? And I want to come back just quickly to a running theme behind everything that I do, is this notion that you're only really in control of one thing and one thing only. That's your beliefs. But control your beliefs on the inside. You control everything on the outside. This is so powerful. It comes from Epictetus, the brilliant Stoic philosopher from 2,000 years ago. And much of that one notion flows through all modern day self-help, cognitive behavioural therapy. Take control of the one thing that you have control over. That's your beliefs, right? It's such an important concept to grasp. And what this does is, by building structure into your life, it gives you a slightly broader sense of control. Even though ultimately you only have control over one thing only, your beliefs. By planning a structure, it just broadens that sense of control. And having a sense that you're in control of your life and your actions and the outcomes that flow from those actions, psychologically is unbelievably powerful. Like a psychological nutriment to keep you mentally healthy and vibrant and strong, you need a sense that what you do matters. This is so foundationally important, that we have that sense of, if I do X, Y, and Z, I will get results, my life will change. And what depression is in many ways is learned helplessness, where people just actually get to that point of, what's the point? Nothing makes any difference. That almost give up stage. Whereas this is the opposite. It's like, yeah, I do have control of my life. I know if I do X, Y, and Z, I'll get these results, right? And building that into your life now in these turbulent times is super, super important. And that comes from understanding that you have that total control over one thing, your beliefs, but also building in structure. Structure wherever you can. Look at your day, map it out. What are you going to do? How are you going to exercise? What are you going to eat? You know, how are you going to maintain your momentum? What are you going to study? What are you going to read? When are you going to exercise? When are you going to spend time with the kids? Homeschool? Whatever it is, build in structure. There is freedom in discipline, says Jocko Willink, if you've ever read any of his stuff. But I love that notion. There's freedom in discipline. It's so true. The more structure you have that builds in all the things that you need to do to achieve the things that you need to do, the more freedom you have to enjoy yourself around the edges. Anyway, I'm starting to go off piste, so I'll just bring it back. That is the 5 fundamental top mistakes I think that people make when they're trying to make lasting change. There's another 15 of those at least. I will cover those at a later date. But anyway, today, this is what I want you to do. Grab a pen and paper, structure your day. Just start to experiment with it. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, I've got some little images and stuff that I've started to share. There's a blue one and a yellow one. Do share that with people. I will be here every day at midday at 12 o'clock to cheer you on, to show you up. I think it's really important to show you up, to show up for you. I think that's really important right about now, that there is someone live out there thinking about you, thinking about these things, trying to come up with ways to strengthen our resolve and strengthen our mindset, even in these turbulent times. So please share it far and wide. The beauty of this platform is that I can do this to one or thousands, doesn't matter, right? And the more people that I can reach, and if it helps them a bit, because it helps me doing this anyway, because I love it, and hopefully it provides some solace and some comfort and some motivation in these uncertain times, I think that's really pretty cool. So please share far and wide, and I'll be here every single day at midday going forward until this all settles down, and then I'll come up with another cunning plan. Enjoy it.